Hey now, as part of a little beer exchange that I'm doing, I needed to bottle up some beers and I wanted to have some kind of a labeling system on them that was a little bit nicer than some painter's tape and marker. It's just not super classy. So I went on to Canva and just sort of made up some cute little labels here. Did not take super long, but I need to find a way to get them onto these bottles. I don't want to use rubber bands. I thought glue might either soak through this or possibly just make it difficult to deal with the bottles afterwards, and we might potentially want to reuse them. So I was digging around online and found people talking about using a wheat paste, and I'm going to try to make that and see exactly how well it works on these bottles. So let's do it. So this is an extremely simple recipe, and a person can go with as few ingredients as just all-purpose flour here and water. I'm going to add a couple extra things to this just because of some additional research I did, but the basic recipe is just 1 part flour to 4 parts water. So in this case, I'm going with an 1/8 cup of flour and then a 1/2 cup here of water. I'm just going to stir that up. And I'm going to turn on my stovetop here just to a medium-low heat. I'm going to whisk to try to prevent any sort of chunks. Now the first additional ingredient, so ingredient number 3 that I'm adding to it with this small quantity is just a pinch of table salt. Now I actually found I do own a pinch measuring spoon here, so I'm going to use it. I swear that's the first time I have actually used that particular tool. And I'm going to whisk this here and just start to let it heat up, whisking frequently. And this is just continuing to heat up here. I actually turned it up a little bit closer to medium just to speed it up. Still, this isn't going to take too long at all just because it's such a small volume. Now the salt was added because apparently it can help this wheat paste just last a little bit longer if you have any unused portion that you want to save. And my final ingredient here is just a little bit of white vinegar. That's just a 5% acetic acid. Again, I just went with a pinch of that. And I'm adding it here right at the very end. This is just starting to hit a boil, so I'm going to pull this off here before it really does that. And this paste is already ready to use. So I'm going to take this over to the island. And apparently adding the vinegar to this might result in a better lasting glue product. So I guess we'll find out whether that works or not. So I have my paste here on the island. I just have this on a nice little wooden cutting board there. It's still really nice and warm. I want to do this while it's hot, just because it's going to thicken even more as it cools, and it's already at the perfect consistency. Now my bottles I have cleaned. I cleaned the exterior really nicely. I bottled these yesterday, and I just let them come up to room temperature, because if they're cold, they're going to be sweating a little bit. You have that condensation on the outside, and that could then mess up this process here. So these are ready to go. I've got my labels all cut out, and all you need now is a paintbrush. You can see this is a well-used, well-loved paintbrush. I'm not entirely sure if I need to coat the entire thing, but I'm going to do that anyway. I'm doing this on a spare piece of paper, just so that I can overshoot the edges here and have some on this. This whole bottling thing is a little bit of a task that I'm not super used to outside of bottling for competition or for the occasional friend, just because I typically keg all of my beer, but here we are. Let's try this out. Now for actually applying these labels, I've just moved that paper out of the way. I've got my bottle down here. You have to be aware of exactly how much wiggle room you have with this bottle, because this particular like Anchor Steam style bottle here tapers so quickly. It doesn't offer a lot of wiggle room for where to place this vertically, but there we go. Haha. Nice. I'm going to just set this aside and get the rest of these done. Okay, I've done 6 of these, and I have found a method that really works quite well. I'm quite confident in what I'm doing here. So I have been using different paper, or just like folding over, just so I don't put my labels face down on any existing glue. That's trick number 1 with this. I'm putting a good amount of this wheat paste on here, and then getting the bottle down, just going to carefully grab this label, arrange it exactly how I want, using the clean sides of my hand, rolling around. Then I've got this other piece of paper towel just nearby that I'm squeezing on here just to flatten it all the way around. and really seal it on. Okay, perfect. Done. Now, one other thing to mention is that it feels like I hardly used any of this. I made way more than I needed. I probably could have got away with a teaspoon and then 4 teaspoons for the measurements here and been just fine, but I don't know, I like to overshoot volume-wise, whatever. If you do wind up with extra, apparently you would just want to get it into a container in the refrigerator, probably as little headspace or airspace in there as possible. And if you have added that salt and whatnot, hopefully that will help it keep in the fridge for a while. Now for cleanup, I just took a paper towel, wiped off most of that glue, and then blasted with the sprayer nozzle on my kitchen sink here. Cleaned it right up. That'll be totally fine. As far as the pot went, I just wiped out as much of the wheat paste in there as I possibly could with that paper towel. And then same thing, just blasting it there with the sprayer feature. And gee, it's brand new. Perfect. I have a feeling that if you let that sit overnight or something like that, you'd have a much different situation. So I would very much recommend cleaning it immediately. There we are. All nicely done. These are looking pretty good. I got to say that this was really quite simple. Now the real test is seeing how they last. I am keeping one of these for myself. The other ones I'm getting rid of tomorrow, but we'll see what happens with that one that I've got.
Now, for the record, it's about 5 minutes later and these labels are already stuck into place. That's great. I'm just going to see how they last here over a few days.
After a few days of just sitting out, these labels are completely attached here still. There's zero sign of it trying to peel off or anything like that. I also gave it a whiff and there's no smell or anything coming from that flour. So this so far seems to be a success. I do want to get this in the refrigerator, cool it down and see what happens when it warms up though. All right, so I've had this in the fridge for a couple of days, just chilling down, and you can see here that this label is still very nicely affixed. Oh, if I really get my finger under there, I can start to peel it off. But other than that, this is not going to come off on its own. So this is a really, really great glue. It's quick and easy, really, really mess-free to use. Love it. Now, just a couple of things left to do. First, all right, woo, pour it out here. Nice. A little saison. Delightful. Now, I want to see, oh yeah. Now I want to see exactly how well this cleans off. All right, so the removal test. Just a little bit of water here. Oh, yeah. Coming out pretty decently. I imagine that if you were to just soak this for several minutes in water, it might even just float off. But seeing as how I'm in a rush, here we go. And no glue residue, no paper residue. Awesome. I'm just going to gather up the paper out of the sink and it's done. So all in, I'd say that this wheat paste experiment was a huge success. It was really quick to make, extremely inexpensive. It was, I mean, all natural ingredients, if that matters to you. It was resilient once it was applied, and it was a really easy cleanup. So if you want to reuse the bottles, super simple to take them off, no residue to deal with or anything like that. So yeah, give it a whirl, and until next time, keep it at 11.